You're listening to the Investor Agent Nation podcast, empowering agents and investors to collaborate effectively and grow their businesses symbiotically. Your hosts, Randy Zimnock and Eric Gross, share real-life case studies, trending tactics, and expert strategies that have helped them to accomplish over $1 billion in sales volume. Whether you're a seasoned agent looking to expand your business or an investor seeking to optimize your returns, you're in the right place. This is the Investor Agent Nation podcast.
Matt is a local investor to kind of like the Tampa Bradenton area, which is where my wife and I are also located. We are a part of an investment group, Kingdom 320, which is a faith-based investing group locally. And I met Matt probably September was your guys' meeting in Tampa. So Randy was like, do you want to tag along with me?
Yeah.
You want to kind of jump into this? And I was like, this sounds exciting. I would love to. So we had the opportunity to go over there and meet Matt, meet a ton of other investors locally. I think there was roughly 100 people at that meeting, maybe a little bit less, but there was 2 different meetings. And pretty much from the jump, Matt started, reaching out. We offered something where we said, hey, if you have some business going on, please reach out to us. We'd love to help you. And Matt kind of stuck out. I think I might have lost Matt. So I'll kind of continue the introduction. So Matt kind of stuck out in terms of he was reaching out. He had stuff going on. He had deals being run. And every time he was doing it, I just got to pin you back up here. Every time he was kind of getting into it, we could kind of tell that he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was looking at comp-wise. He knew what he was after. So today's meeting is going to be how to kind of get started and then how to basically grow that, kind of throw some gasoline on the fire, be able to continue it growing. So one of the most common things I get on the investment side of things is, hey, I have no clue where to get started. I want to get started. I can't take the jump. So Matt, do you want to go ahead and tell us how you got into real estate investing?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. So for me, it was a situation where I got laid off from my long-term employment and wasn't really finding anything in my field. And I decided to go to a Life Surge event in Tampa, which turned me on to Kingdom 320 and decided to just pursue something completely different. I had done a lot of remodeling and stuff back in my youth. And so I had that construction sort of background and knowledge. I hadn't used it in a while, but it was still up there. And anyway, I decided while I still had some severance money available, I was gonna jump in with both feet.
Nice.
So that was in
awesome.
like you said, September's meeting was really when I had joined in August, but September's meeting was really kind of the catalyst for me to really start taking more serious action. Up to that point was viewing a lot of videos and, just training myself because it's like learning another language if you've never done real estate before. So I spent about 30 days doing that. And then, like I said, that after that meeting, after that weekend, I think it was probably maybe 3 days before I had my first deal locked up.
Yeah. And I know pretty much as soon as we left that meeting, one of the things we talked to everybody about was, hey, we're here to help out. Don't hesitate to ask questions and stuff like that. And then Matt posted in the Facebook group and was like, hey, I got a deal locked up. And it was like, all right, that was quick. So we ran through that with you. When you were doing some of the education stuff going into the real estate side of it, you said you did about 30 days of education. Where were you doing that education? What were you using to kind of get yourself ready to make the move?
Yeah, so there with Kingdom 320, there's an extensive group of videos as well as pretty much daily meetings that are like this on where you can interact and ask questions and that sort of thing. So probably 90% of it was through that.
Okay. Now,
through
did
that,
you?
it just kind of, yeah.
I don't know. My fault. Go ahead.
You cut out. I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I was just saying, go ahead. Now, when you were doing one of the things, because I did the same thing when I got into the business, I started in on Bigger Pockets, listened to everything. But one of the things I struggled with when I got out of doing that it was the toughest thing for me was analysis paralysis, which is what I have a lot of our newer investors that we work with. They go through that. You do all of the education, you do all of the learning, and you're just trying to soak up as much as you can. What kind of helped you not fall into that analysis paralysis where you were able to make a move?
Yeah, I would say that I did have some of that early on because I'm not a big risk taker.
Okay.
With my finances and stuff like that. So there was a certain amount of that, while I was going through those video trainings and stuff, because I was looking for properties actively, but I would look at it and sort of, like you say, get paralyzed by feel overwhelmed by what's going on. And then, after we had gone through that meeting that you were at with Randy, I saw a deal start to finish. It wasn't in all the little chunks of videos. It was like start to finish. I could see the product. I could see it just made it real, So for me, that was like, okay, even though I'm scared, I got to do it scared. So that was kind of my motto getting into it was, I'm scared, but I'm going to do it scared.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's something to that. I think no matter the analysis paralysis is really tough because you feel like the more information you consume, you're almost mitigating your risk. But I think realistically what happens is there's more risk because you're passing up on opportunities. And I fell into it as well. Like it took me a year. It didn't take 30 days of me to finally like actually step out of that and go do something because I just was nervous and I was like, okay, like this can go wrong or this can go wrong. Or what if, what if this happens? I don't know what's going on. So I will say that kind of leads into one of the next questions I wanted to talk about on your first deal. Was there anything that popped up or was there anything that you had to overcome that, like now that you've done it, you're like, okay, stuff's going to pop up. That's okay. And now you know that, you're not going to know everything when it comes to real estate. You just kind of have to roll with the punches.
Yeah. I think on the very first deal, we're still actively rehabbing that property, but on that deal, I learned very quickly that I shouldn't necessarily trust somebody else's comps. Yep. And, I had, submitted that deal to you and Randy to kind of take a look at, but it was very late in the game. I was literally 3 or 4 days from closing. Yeah. And, all of a sudden you guys are like throwing up red flags for me to say, hey man, you need to maybe back out of this. But the reality is, we had gone into this deal to help an 81-year-old lady get out of a situation in an older home that she couldn't manage anymore. And we were 3 days from closing, so I wasn't going to back out. Even if I was going to lose a little bit of money, I just made the decision and my wife made the decision. We just prayed about it and said, look, if we end up losing money, it'll be the cost of education. And if we don't, then it'll be just God blessing us for an effort to try to help somebody out. The second deal, there was a lot of little surprises along the way, but the big one for us was at the very last minute. We discovered that the property was actually on a septic, and we thought the whole time it was on city sewer and water. And in fact, I had personally turned off the water valve, so I had no reason to doubt that it wasn't on city sewer. But long story short, as it was on a septic system, we ended up having to get an inspection, and of course, it came back with a recommendation of replacement, about $12,000. Yeah. And so that was a surprise. We ended up negotiating with the buyer a couple grand off of that. But, again, that was one of those things where, if I'm in a little bit more rural area, for absolutely going to be checking that out differently than I did the first time, for sure. Yeah.
And there's a couple lessons in there. I'll say on the first one with the comp thing, and I was kind of going to I was alluding almost to the septic thing. So, I'm glad you even brought that up. Like, yeah, that one, like, I don't know anybody that would have the courage to do what you did with it. Like, it speaks just highly of like your character. For me and Randy, like, I ran the comps and I said, this to me, I'm not seeing the comp range that the listing agent was giving. And I don't think it was anything, intentionally done by the listing agent. I just think it's, sometimes one,
Oh,
comps are tough, and two, everybody runs them differently. And if an agent hasn't been taught how to run comps, kind of how an appraiser is going to, it's a really tough way to line it up. So I remember, telling you like, hey, meet me at my open house and I will like through detail take you through how I'm seeing these comps lay out, because it was really important to me that you knew going into it. And you had the information, you got everything, and you still decided, you know what, like for what you're wanting to do, your worst case was you were going to lose some money and it was going to be an education, but you were still going to make the decision to help the seller out and also take action. So I love the, it's almost like paying for a tuition. People that are going to school
yeah.
for, going to a 4-year school, they're paying $40,000 a year to be there sometimes. That's paying tuition. So if you go ahead with a deal and lose some money, obviously it's not ideal. You don't want to flip in a position where you can't lose a little bit of money or it'll completely destroy you financially, but that it's not the end of the world either. And that one's still going on. And then while you had sent me that one, you also sent me another one to run. And that one I said, hey, thumbs up, we're looking good here. Comps look good, should be pretty solid. So that one, start to finish, was probably your first one technically, because it did sell. And
Yeah.
I think honestly, the fact that you had two deals going on at once was actually a huge benefit, because you could almost mitigate the one where the comps were a little bit wrong with the other one. You can almost say like, okay, like this one's still going to be really solid. I'm able to mitigate this first one. So, and then on the second one,
Yeah. And I would say
go ahead.
I was going to say on our third one, same thing. It's a lot more solid with the
Yep.
comps and everything. And so again, it will finish up with its remodel very, very close to the time that the first one is.
Mhm.
And again, we'll mitigate any loss that may come from that, I believe, on that one too. So
Yeah.
we're solid on that one.
And I would say even so with the one where the septic popped up, like obviously it's not ideal. That's a very scary thing to have happen. It's a pretty large repair. It's not something you budgeted for, but there's a couple things to that. One, you did the work yourself on it. It was one of the better flips I think I've ever listed. Sorry, I had my phone ring. It was one of the better flips I've ever, had listed in terms of the work, and everybody that came through said the same thing. You were able to kind of control costs because of that. So you were able to keep the rehab budget down. And the numbers just totally made sense with where you were at on it. So, the septic obviously being a surprise, there's going to be stuff that pops up in real estate. There's going to be, open permits you didn't know about. There's going to be issues that pop up, and kind of tying it back into that analysis paralysis conversation. You can't have the answer to everything. You almost have to just roll with the punches in real estate. You have to, I know we talked a lot during that deal, and I was just like, look, like this happens on every transaction. There's always something that's going to pop up. And you're never going to know what it is. It can be small, can be huge, but you almost can't stress about it. You just have to be like, okay, this is what's happened. Now I have to kind of come up with what are the solutions and the ways to go about it.
Yeah.
So,
And that was good advice. I mean, I think I told you at the time, we've moved 13 times in our marriage and we've never had a delay in closing or anything pop up at the last minute. So that was new to us, but you're reassuring, that, hey, this happens a lot, this kind of thing. So you just, you live in the gray, right? It's not black and white. And even though our past experience has been pretty black and white in the grand scheme of things, it was a really good reminder for me to live in the gray and just trust in God that it's going to work out. And he gave us agents that were caring enough to dig in and help us navigate through that. So thanks, Eric and Katie, for that.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it. And it's just one of those where like there's going to be so many things that happen in real estate. And like you said, I mean, when you're just buying a home once every 7 to 10 years, like there's a mitigation almost to the fact that like it can be a lot smoother of a process. You're not handling transactions as often. But when you start to become an investor, like I have never met an investor that hasn't run into some sort of issue. And actually one of the things I love is like networking with other investors and agents, because I hear stuff all the time where I'm like, oh crap, like I didn't even think of that. So then what I do is, that's something that completely changes. Like we almost have like little SOPs, and I'm like, okay, like from here on out, we're going to add this in so that mitigates the risk. So, there's only so much you can do, but I think if you're constantly getting started and looking at, being fearful and thinking of how many unknowns there are out there, you'll never get started, because in real estate, anything, and I mean literally anything, can happen at any given time. So, and then with the third deal, like that was something that you had the other two projects going on, and then you reached out to me and you said, "Hey, I have another deal. I would like to have you run it." So we ran it, and you decided to take on that third deal. What was kind of the thought process? You're a new investor. You've got two flips going on. One of them's under contract. One of them's just getting kind of going. What was the thought process to go ahead and start with a third project?
Yeah, for me, it was just about trying to start to build some momentum.
Okay.
So you're not starting from scratch again. Once you sell it, you have to start over again, and you've got a 30-day window to really do nothing. And
Yeah.
I didn't want that. I didn't want the cash flow, to be limited in that way. And my hope is to do at least 10 this year. And there was no way to do that unless I keep moving. I mean, I'm looking at two more right now, even though I've got two active.
Yeah.
I haven't secured them yet, but again, I know these two are going to go on the market within the next month. By that time, the next one or two that I have in the works right now will be closing, and I can start on those projects as well and just keep that momentum flowing.
Yep. No, I love that. And one of the conversations we probably have with our agents on our team the most is building out your pipeline. And I think with agents and investors, it's the same. It's always having something going on. Like, obviously you want business now. You want to be working with a buyer seller right now. You want to be flipping a house right now, or trying to find a buy and hold right now. But you almost have to think long term. So once these projects are done, if all of your focus, I think it tends to happen a lot in real estate as well. If all of your focus is on, okay, just got to get these projects done, that's the only thing I can focus on. Then when they're done, you're going to have this lull of, there's nothing else lined up. There's nothing else going on. I think what you're doing right now honestly makes the most sense, because, and we'll talk a little bit about this, you have a GC that helps you a ton, somebody that you can rely on and is very helpful and just does a great job. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But while those projects are going on, you're able to focus on that, but you're also able to take your attention and say, okay, I know these are going to be wrapped up. Once they are, I want to have some other properties identified. And then if a good deal comes across, you can jump on it. And then if these close and there isn't a good deal out there, you don't have to feel forced to be like, okay, well, I need another project. So, I'm going to fudge the numbers here. I'm going to push the ARV a little bit higher than I should.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I think, having a good GC for sure is definitely been a blessing for me. Because the one thing I learned on that first flip with the septic issue is I did all that work myself, and it left no time for me to work on the business. I was in it up to my eyeballs. And, once I got done with the work on that and I got re-engaged in actually building my business and stuff, that's when on this third property, I said, okay, Brian, I need you to run the show basically as the contractor here, and let me focus on finding more properties and making us both some more money. So that's been really good. So I'm still heavily involved, but I'm not involved every day like I was.
Yeah. Well, there's a benefit to that. Like I've talked to some investors too. Like, if you know how to do the work, if a deal does get hairy, or if the numbers get tight, or, first day you're doing demo and something pops up that you weren't expecting, the benefits are you could say, okay, well, I can go in and tile the bathrooms. It's not ideal to do something like that. You don't want to do that, but there's kind of a safe to it. And the other part is, like, me and Katie, we've done work ourselves as well, is when you talk to a GC, or a sub or anything like that, like, if they're, bull crapping you or not, to put it nicely, like, like, hey, it's not going to cost $15, per square foot to install LVP. Like, I know we're way off there. So it's kind of a good benefit to have. So with you wanting to do 10 projects, you've got 2 going on currently, you just sold 1. What are your thoughts? Are you thinking you're going to do 1 or 2 at a time? How was your thought of growing that out?
I mean, I would like to have at least 3 going at all times,
Okay.
But it's been, like I said, it's been a little bit weird the last I don't know, I'd say probably the last month, it's been more difficult for me to find a deal that makes sense. I mean, I've looked at a lot of properties, but I'm not going to pull the trigger just to pull the trigger. I want to make sure that it's, that it's going to be a fruitful thing. So like I said, I've got two that are in the works right now. I'm hoping both work out. I mean, that'd be great. But if they don't, I'm still looking every single day and networking and trying to get different pipelines or different streams of information coming to me through different wholesale groups and different RIAs and different partnerships and stuff like that. So I definitely have been building that network in the last probably 90 days, and starting to see more activity there.
Yeah. No, that's I think we talk quite a bit, just about deals and stuff like that, and it's it's one of those things where like if a deal doesn't pencil out or if we have an ARV on it, like one, I think we've learned this, wholesalers are not going to always have the most accurate ARV. They're not going to have the most accurate scope of work. Like their job, I get a lot of investors that send me a wholesale deal and I'm like, hey, their ARV is 100,000 more than it should be, and they're like, well, that's how can they do that? That's they're not telling the truth. And it's like their job is to sell this property. Like they're not real estate experts per se, and if they're pulling comps, there might be one that's 100,000 over, but it might have a pool and it might have 500 square feet more, and there's all these intricacies that they're not sure what to look for. They might be pulling comps a mile and a half out. So you do have to be kind of careful when you're getting stuff from wholesalers, but there's also this we talked about analysis paralysis, but there's also this discipline that's required that is really tough as an investor when you want to pull the trigger and you're just like, I want more deals, like I want to keep things going, but you're getting these opportunities and you have to say, hey, even if it works out numbers wise and it's 15,000 profit and you're kind of thinking like, man, do I want to take on all of this risk and stress for 15,000 over 6 months? And if you come to that answer, some people would love that, others wouldn't. But if you come to that conclusion that, hey, that's not worth it, it's better to pass on something like that and then look for other opportunities, know what you're looking for. One thing you do is you stick very local to the Bradenton and Parrish area, and it very well, but you're also not chasing opportunities, in Tallahassee. You're not looking for flips crazy far distances. You're staying where you know.
Yeah, and that's just the control freak in me. I need to be. I don't think I'm ever going to be the sight unseen buyer, in different states.
Yeah,
like some investors are, but I do want to keep it close enough that I can keep my eyes on the project and have those relationships built with contractors that, like I said, that I can trust and stuff. And Brian and I worked really well together because he's here local. He lives, in Palmetto, so he's right one town over from me, and he's kind of the same way. He doesn't want to go 2 hours away for a job. It just doesn't make sense for his business either. So there's plenty of homes here. There's plenty of homes here, plenty of opportunity here, and it's just a matter of finding the right ones and not getting yourself in too deep. I will say, the you mentioned about the ARVs and all that kind of stuff, and one of my strategies has been to make sure that I'm buying properties, where the ARV is under 500,000 or thereabouts, just to be strategic about what's still moving in the market, because things that are higher priced down here just aren't moving in, the days on market. It's just eating up your margin, when it's going 200 days, 200 plus days. So, that's kind of been part of my strategy, is to get the price point right.
Yeah, and I think there's something very important to just knowing your market. Like, you want to not, especially in Tampa, Bradenton, St. Pete, it's like kind of one big market, but smaller local markets is our days on market, it's pushing closer to 100 days. And Zillow just changed their forecast for Tampa. So, they were expecting, I think, like 3% appreciation in Tampa going into 2026, and now it's changed to negative 1.5%. And that's not a huge swing. Numbers still make sense with a swing like that. But what you have to understand is your holding costs go up considerably. Like if I'm dealing with investors in Cincinnati, our holding costs are, hey, as soon as it's done, this is going to get listed. And if it's done right and the work is done correctly and it's priced properly, it's going to be off the market in 10 days and then it'll sell in 30. So you have a month holding cost on top of the flip. But here in Tampa, here in Bradenton and all that, like it's not uncommon for houses to sit on the market for 3 or 4 months. So, knowing that you can kind of be very dialed into it, knowing that you don't want to go 500 plus is kind of second home territory. Well, there's not a lot of people right now that are like, I'd gladly sell my 2% mortgage home and get a 8% mortgage home just because I want to add in a game room. Like most people right now are like, we're good, we'll go without that. So those homes 500,000 plus and up tend to sit longer than homes that are 500,000 and below. So I love that you do have a buy box that you stick to. I love that you have like a location you stick to. It's typically block homes. It's typically, you even sent me, I've had some investors send me like a 1 bed, 1 bath, 400 square feet. And it's like, who are we going to sell that to? Like that's, there's not a huge buyer pool for it. So it's great that you kind of know that this is what people want in the market and you can kind of focus in on that.
Yeah.
One of the questions I had, so for a lot of people that are struggling to get started, one, just taking that first step, like what would be your recommendation, just in terms of what kind of got you to finally say, you know what, like I'm ready to go. I know you said going to that in-person class, but is there any, like if somebody's listening to this, they haven't done a deal, but they really want to, what would be your advice?
I would say, networking is definitely one of the things that you want to be doing, and take a partner, and not necessarily, a true JV partner, but if it can be, if you want it to be, but you need to have a mentor, I think, if you don't know what you're doing as far as construction goes and things like that. So, on the house that we sold already, we had some folks that are in the Kingdom 320 group that had never done a flip before, and they just wanted to ride along with me, and see it start to finish. And through that, we've made some really good friendships, and we've worked on other deals together since then. But don't underestimate, where that next deal is going to come from through a partnership that you've made. And also don't underestimate who you think might have money to loan. I never would have thought to ask, certain people, just based on my past. You just don't ever ask people for money. It's just kind of how you're brought up. But there's a lot more money out there than you think there is. And so don't let that be the barrier. The fear that there's not going to be money there. The way you're going to find it is through networking and making calls and just talking to people about what's working, what's not. That's
I might have lost you for a second. Oh, did we lose Matt?
Sorry, we lost me there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think I lost you.
Yeah, but anyway, that gave me the confidence to, that I wasn't doing it alone.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife is involved, very limited in this, because she works full time and she's just not all that interested in the numbers and the whatever. She'd love to be a designer.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it's you've got to have people that you can call and talk to and trust, build trust and relationship with that'll be long term.
I think there's something
not your
really,
competitor.
Yeah, I think there's something really important to kind of the first part you said about it. We can talk about the second part as well, but I think when I got into real estate, I think a lot of us, like, we feel isolated, and I think that is part of what makes it tough to make a decision, because you're so afraid that, like, if you make it, like, you don't have anybody there. There's something to finding either somebody who's a local expert, or finding a mentor, or finding other people that want to get into it with you and helping each other, talking to them, communicating them, like kind of pouring back into them. Similar situation when I finally was able to kind of get into making decisions real estate wise. I found somebody who took me under his wing, was an investor, taught me what he knew, helped kind of build that confidence up. And then the decisions become a lot easier because you're not afraid, like, okay, what if I make this mistake? You know that the person, one, you have
Mhm.
somebody else that's in it with you if you are partnering, whether it's JV or not. But two, if it's somebody who has that experience, that kind of like wisdom, then you know, like, okay, as things happen, as things come up, I'm not going to be, up a creek wondering what's going on. You're going to have somebody that you can say, hey, what did you do here? Or what do you do there? And networking events, like, go to them as often as you can. I'm the worst at it. Like, I never go as often as I should. I think you should go every single week as an agent, as an investor, title company, whatever it is. Like, go out and talk with people. What's going on with the market? What are they struggling with? Matt, one of the things that you probably do better than anybody I have met before in real estate, and I've done this for a while, is just like, you have no problem adding value to other people and pouring back into them. Like, there's a lot of newer investors in our group that, like you said, you will take on for, a ride, or you'll say, hey, come to my flip, let's go walk it. You're not expecting anything in return. You're just helping
Yeah.
these people. And in the long run, like, those people might get into wholesaling and you'll be the first person that gets their deal. Or they might decide, hey, flipping's not for me. I see what Matt's doing, but I do have 150 grand sitting in the bank that, he can use. It could be that they
Mhm.
know a contractor and they're like, hey, like, this person's great. So you just never know what those relationships and what adding value to people will do. It's something I think doesn't
Yeah.
happen enough in business. I think a lot of times we do see it as competition. People kind of shy away from collaboration. And I just think there's so much you miss out on. There's so many opportunities out there. There's so many people that you never know who can, like, fundamentally change your life in this business. Like, one
Mhm.
conversation could completely change your trajectory. And that's what happened with me. And it's something that's like, the more you kind of put yourself out there, talk to people about it, the more you set yourself up for that.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I agree.
now that you've got 3 deals, one closed, 2 deals going on under your belt, what are some lessons? What are some takeaways that you're going to kind of use going forward?
Yeah, I think on the positive side, like I said, being at the right price point,
Mhm.
making sure you do your own research, that sort of thing. I think on
Yeah.
the real learning sides, like the real life learning side, is with the first deal I did all the work myself, so I controlled the timing. On these
Yeah.
other 2 deals, I've had to have electricians, I've had to have plumbers, and unfortunately they don't work on the same timeline that I want to work on all the
Yeah.
time because they're busy with other things. And um and they may not be as communicative as I would like about when they're coming and how fast it's going to take, and that sort of thing. So I'm learning to navigate that.
Okay.
Again, coming from a long-term employment, where I was the leader, of teams of hundreds of people. I was expecting, I always got the answer I needed or wanted pretty darn quick. And
Yeah.
so I'm learning to be a little more flexible with my expectations, from a communication standpoint, and lead times, for
Yeah.
materials and stuff like that. So yeah, those are learnings that I'm sure will continue. But they were ones that that probably cost us a few weeks here and there in the grand
Yeah.
scheme of things.
Yeah, it's that I think that's a good one. Like, I think even having worked with you on the first one, like, you are very much like, want to be in control, knowing what's going on, which is an amazing trait. Like, it's a huge benefit. And I know when we had stuff kind of going on with that first deal, it's like, there's only so much you can do. It's the same with contractors. Like, it almost takes like patience, like, but beyond belief. Like, you're like, why are we not doing this? Like, I want this to get going. So
Yeah.
sometimes it takes a lot
Or even
to.
with, like, yeah, I mean, if you remember with that first deal, I had ordered tile for a backsplash,
Mhm.
from Wayfair way in advance, but it came in wrong. It was like
Yeah.
completely wrong color, wrong material, everything. And I was like, man, we're supposed to take pictures in like 3 days. I gotta
Yeah.
scramble. So again, it's understanding that things can go wrong and having a plan B.
Yeah.
Um, and not that your plan being everything, but the things that are going to hold you up, um, um, time wise, you definitely want to try and mitigate any time lost if you can.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's something to that too. Like it kind of sounds like from this conversation, we're like, heck, wing it, like stuff's gonna happen, but you don't want to do that in real estate. Like you want to stick to kind of like you really do want to control as much as you can. There's always going to be stuff that you can't, but you do want to make sure that like the decisions you're making are ones that are kind of thought out beforehand. And I know you had kind of done this. I can tell just by the way you look at properties, but you kind of knew what you were going for property wise. As to kind of marry like the Investor Agent Nation thing together as kind of like a lesson learned in this is I get a lot of investors that reach out to me and they're like, send me any deal you get. And it's like, what's the deal you're looking for? Like flip, do you want buy and hold? Are you wanting, condos, single family, multifamily? Send me anything. Anytime somebody does that to me, I never put them on the buyer's list because it sounds terrible. They're going to be a waste of time. Like if they're doing that, like if they're just like, send me anything you have. It's like, okay, well, you don't even know what you want then. So it's kind of controlling what you can. And I know that like with you going for block homes, staying 500,000 and below, you look for these properties that are, and in a certain location, you kind of know what you're looking for and what you want. So that's a huge benefit.
Yeah. And I think there's other ways to diversify yourself in real estate other than, taking that shotgun approach to just give me any deal you can. Whether it be syndicated deals or whether it be just, being a private money lender or things like that. There's other ways to navigate real estate and make money beyond what your buy box is. Yeah. And so I think rather than expanding your buy box to be anything and you become, 80% good at a lot of things, but you're not 100% great at anything, I think you're selling yourself short.
Yeah. Agreed. Wholeheartedly agreed. Okay, well, so I want to have some questions at the end. Like I always want to do that. So I'll kind of end it with, you've been doing this for less than a year now. You've got 2 deals that you're currently working on. You have one that you just flipped. You have more deals that you're running. If there was like any bit of advice you could give yourself from when you started just, 6 months ago, is there anything that you'd kind of tell now, Matt, or like would now Matt tell previous Matt, like, hey, as you get into this journey, like this is what I have to kind of impart wisdom wise, what would you kind of say?
Yeah, again, I think for me, again, being sort of in this faith-based group, it's a very important part of my life. And I was not trusting that God was going to provide at the very beginning. And aside from that meeting, the book of Joshua for me, when he's going over the Jordan into Jericho, and God kept reinforcing to him to have courage and faith, and that's kind of what I've been clinging to for the last 5 or 6 months. That what God's gonna he started this, he put me in this position, I think intentionally, and he's linked us together intentionally, and I think he's gonna finish what he started. I have to trust that.
Absolutely.
And so that's my biggest piece of advice, I think, is trust that the Lord's going to provide.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's amazing. I think we all, I think that's something we all need. Like I know you had even posted in our Facebook group, one morning that, there's going to be times where you kind of not lose it, but you kind of, the faith wanes a little bit. You kind of have. So yeah, and then when that happens, it gets really scary. So I think it's just kind of like re-cementing that faith, like kind of saying like, like there's a reason I'm doing this. There's a reason people are brought, in your life that God has brought, across our paths. Like me and Katie always say all the time, like if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. But also it's mind blowing to me that how like, whenever there's doubt or anything like that, God always kind of provides. There's always something, there's always like an answer to what we're worried about. So I think especially getting into investing and just how much we don't control, it's the ultimate kind of like faith tester there. So
for more insights and to join the Investor Agent Nation community, visit investoragentnation.com. If you like this episode, please subscribe to the podcast and leave a 5-star rating to help Randy and Eric continue delivering valuable content that resonates with you. Thanks for listening to the Investor Agent Nation podcast.